To order, please stand for the Pledge of Allegiance. I pledge allegiance to the flag
of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all.
No. Okay. I brought my.
This meeting is being live streamed by Chelmsford Telemedia and posted to the Chelmsford Public Schools website for interested community members to access and watch. In-person public participation will be taking place tonight in accordance with the Chelmsford School Committee Public Participation Guidelines. Anyone speaking tonight during the public input portion of the meeting has notified the superintendent's office of their desire to speak and has been provided with these guidelines. Upon request, written comments received no later than 12 p.m. on the day of this meeting will also be read and made a part of the record of the meeting during the second public comment session. I don't think we have any members of the press here tonight. Welcome, everybody, to tonight's school committee meeting. Our first order of business is to approve our minutes from December 5th.
Okay, I make a motion to approve the minutes from our meeting on December 5th.
Second.
Okay, is there any questions or corrections? All those in favor?
Aye.
4-0 in favor. Hi.
Hello, everyone. So tonight, actually, there's the All-Town Winds Ensemble, which is taking place at the Performing Arts Center, and students in grades 6 through 12 will be there. And on the 13th, Wednesday, the Chelmsford High School 2023 Winter Concert was held, and that was also at the Performing Arts Center. And that evening featured moving and powerful performances by the percussion, treble choir, concert choir, and the band and orchestra ensembles. And with the holidays coming up, the Chelmsford High School National Honor Society is selling holiday gram ornaments that they handcrafted themselves. And these are being sold at all lunches for students to purchase. And this past weekend, the Chelmsford High School Speech and Debate team placed 7th place at the annual Holly Tournament in Natick. So this placing was the result of the amount of Chelmsford students competing and the total points they earned. So congrats to them. That's all I have.
Great, thank you so much. And thank you for being here tonight. I know it's a very busy time of year. So thank you for coming and representing your team.
Yes.
And also thank you for sharing that information with me about the fundraiser.
Yes.
From the last meeting. Thank you, that was very helpful. All right, do we have any good news?
Good news. Good news, Byam Elementary is still on the same academic calendar as the rest of the district. We were very happy about that this morning. And we're just looking forward to vacation week.
Any other good news, Dr. Lang?
I got a little bit of good news.
Okay.
Just sharing that we all got a Happy Holidays card from Community Teamwork,
Nice.
thanking us for lifting up our community.
Thank you, that's very nice. All right, I don't believe we have anybody registered for a public input session.
We don't.
All right, so then I'll turn
We
it over
jump
to
right
you.
into, we actually have a busy agenda tonight, so we'll jump right into the first item on the agenda. We have our third presentation of the year related to our strategic planning work that we're taking place. And this is our equity group. We have the Amy Reese and Amy Matson with us tonight. Color coordinated perfectly. And for the holidays, it looks great. So we're going to turn it over to them and talk a little bit about some of the work that the equity subgroup has been doing to align to the strategic plan. So welcome, and I'll turn it over to you.
Thank you. So as Jay said, we're here to present on the equity subcommittee work for the strategic plan. So myself, Amy Matson, and Maria are the co-chair, or the trio chairs of the committee. We also have some other members, the team chairs, Megan, the preschool coordinator, and Carrie Calabrese is on our team from McCarthy Middle School as the assistant principal. As with the other presentations that have taken place, the theory of action is in place for all the areas of the strategic plan and stays in place. I won't necessarily read that. So looking at the priority areas within the strategic planning that the district's been working on the past two and a half years, 2 years, this is the second year. We're going to focus on the equity subcommittee this presentation tonight. So within the equity subcommittee, we have had two main measures of success that we, go on to probably the next slide. They're listed there. So we're looking at the gap in achievement between our students with disabilities and our students, our gen ed students as well, that achievement gap. The other part of the equity subcommittee is we're looking and focused on that achievement gap between our general ed students and our students who are economically disadvantaged. So those are the two main areas that this equity committee has been focused on that was set in place a little over 2 years ago when we set that. So each year, we've had a couple of different initiatives that we've been focused on, and this year, the initiatives, there are 4 of them that the committee has identified. And our first one is focused on the role of the paraeducator. We'll talk a little bit more detail about each one when we get into some later slides. That one was basically had come out of our special ed opportunities review, which was part of our initiatives last school year in equity. The second one we've identified is looking at a continuum of educational supports to provide students with the high-quality instruction in the least restrictive environment. And this goes from general ed through special ed. And while we'll talk a little bit more about that as we get to that section. Our third initiative that we identified was to focus on that second part of our students who are economically disadvantaged and to look at putting together and researching some strategies that we're utilizing here within the district. And then also to reach out to some of our partner communities as well and see what they may be doing as well for supports in place and see if we want to add or to what we already have in place. Our fourth area is the area looking at iReady for K-8. This is our numbers that we're kind of tracking our students with disabilities and making sure, looking at the numbers that are where they're falling and making sure we can have initiatives put in place to kind of move them along in that continuum to make progress. Okay, so the first initiative, the role of the paraeducator. As you've probably seen in the structures before for the other presentations, we kind of have an action plan set up to look at and map out kind of what we're going to do throughout the year at the different sections of the year. This, as I said, had come out of the special ed opportunities review that we had last year. Our district management, the district management group, the DM group, is also helping us this year to facilitate this particular initiative. We have started by identifying Dr. Lang, myself, Dr. Hirsch, a stakeholder group of individuals to be on this committee. To kind of look at it involves having paraprofessionals from every level, a gen ed teacher, special educator, some building level administrators, and some other special ed administrators, as long as Dr. Lang, Amy Matson, and myself are on the committee. So we had our first meeting, and we met in end of November. We have another meeting scheduled at the mid or end of January. So we've outlined our meetings as a committee to work and focus on really kind of honing in on the roles and responsibilities for paraeducators and to kind of look at that piece of, you know, who they may report to, kind of looking at supporting them stronger in their role.
Good. Okay. So I can talk about initiative 2, which is identifying the continuum of educational supports to provide students with high-quality instruction in the least restrictive environment. So when we talked about kind of focusing on that achievement gap, it was really around how can we make sure that our students are spending as much time as possible in gen ed, because that's really where the academic rigor is. And so this initiative really focuses on identifying what supports are available in the district. And this would start all the way from general education, tier 1 kind of supports, moving through tier 2, and then all the way into all the options of special education, including out-of-district placements. So we've started that work. We've identified a smaller working group. We had our first meeting last week. And as of right now, we're working on putting the structure together. We want to identify people working most likely at the various grade levels because some supports that might be available at elementary may not be available at middle or high, or there may just be different supports. So we're working on putting the document together by level so that we can just start to identify what supports are available. In conjunction, then, we're also going to be working with this group on what's the best way we want to deliver this information. So we know that there's going to be that finished product, but we want to really think about, what's the best way in terms of graphics, layout, description, kind of what's sort of the best vehicle for getting this information out there. And our next meeting, which will be scheduled for January, we are going to spend some time focusing on there's a technical document out there called Is Special Education the Right Service? It was put out many years ago. It's very, very helpful just in terms of really considering the types of students who really do qualify for special education. And so one of our next steps is to share that document with this working group. And I think that will also help, again, kind of make those distinctions around, what supports are available and really who are the students who are referred for special education and ultimately receive special education. So that is the plan for this initiative.
So our third initiative is taking a look at putting a small working group together, which I've identified Marie as part of that working group as well, to kind of identify what supports we've had in the district already. And again, as Amy mentioned on the prior one, looking at like preschool all the way through to high school, because there's different levels of supports that are put into place there. And putting together, a document that will kind of outline what supports and what between SEL, academic, all along the way to identify what's in place to help support these students. Then we're also taking a look at reaching out to some other districts and doing like a couple of survey questions about what other supports or things they may have in place to kind of to support students who are economically disadvantaged that will not necessarily be targeted interventions for that subgroup, but really kind of other levels of support that will support as a whole to be able to then improve attendance and improve some of our academic scoring. And the last initiative we identified, as I mentioned, this one kind of targets looking at more of the data around our overall goals, which we're measuring with MCAS for those two subgroups, students with disabilities and students who are economically disadvantaged. The first three initiatives really are other supports put in place that will be a foundation to kind of help do the work of this equity group, that the goal will be then to support what's there to be able to improve the academic performance in ELA and math of our students with disabilities and our students who are economically disadvantaged. So this initiative, we're looking at targeting the iReady because MCAS scores are once a year. We only kind of have that information and in the fall to also target our with iReady, great students in K through 8, looking at our students with disabilities and making sure that we're targeting through that, following them and making initiatives and putting interventions into place that are actually working. So we're with 3 times a year, we can monitor that. So the team chairs are working with the special ed teachers and related service providers in the buildings in reviewing that data. That was in a quick nutshell. I'm sure there's questions.
Thank you. Thank you both very much. Does anybody have any questions?
Just a comment. I know that was a quick update, but it probably belies how much work and effort went into that. And as a strategic initiative, I just wanted to thank you for the effort and for Maria for being on the committees. It's not easy work. So 5 slides doesn't really encompass all that, I'm sure.
The whole strategic planning process was actually, for me, a lot of fun.
Yeah.
Only because it was interesting to see how everybody came together as a group. I mean, really, we were all very much together, and there are so many people here on this, everybody participated, basically. And as a school committee member, I think more than anything else, I thought I wasn't the right person for this group. But then, they were so welcoming and open to having me, which was really nice. And they've been terrific in listening. And I think, for example, in the initiative that I'm now on the subcommittee for, which involves a group that we really can't define as well. And you're not looking at statistics or measuring things because you're not going to group people into their economically disadvantaged. I mean, really. So what we're doing, though, is realizing that we already have some things that are in place. For example, we all worked towards supporting social workers in every one of our schools, working with families and so on. And that role plays a big part in this. But what else can we do? How is that role being used and so on? These are all the types of questions that we have going forward. So the subgroups really help, and that's where the work is really starting now to get this rolling more and more. And the other thing that I think is really immense is Initiative 2, I think is great because it will create a chart and more and more communication within special ed so that everybody knows where they can go, what route to take, where we can and cannot help, and so on. Right in writing, it's there, will be immense. So I'm happy to see all this happening. All the other initiatives are just as important, but I think those two are very important.
Yeah, to echo what John said, thank you for all the hard work. It looks like a lot of prep work this year, kind of getting all your ducks in a row. So I will assume next year we're gonna implement some of these, different initiatives. And hopefully start seeing that gap come down. Is there a goal? Like after the first year, we'd like to see the gap reduced by 10% or 20% or get to the state average or?
Yeah. We did kind of identify at the beginning of this strategic plan work, looking at those grades 3 and grades 8 with ELA and math for the MCAS scores. And it was kind of a target we were looking at when that first spring was putting together to figure out like how much each year we were going to look at having an increase. And then by the end of the strategic plan of 5 years out, where we would like to see that percentage of that gap narrowing. We hit beyond some of those targets in year one with last fall with the scores we got last fall from the spring. And in some areas we didn't. It was a little bit challenging coming out of COVID and coming out of some gaps in MCAS alone, taking the test. So that work, I'm really kind of excited to see what next year's might be, to have 2 years to look at. And then the areas that really we talked about, struggling a little bit more was in the area of math, which I think is part of that overall target that we have for the district. And we've put some things in place with the math training, the new math program that I'm sure Matthew's talked about. We're also arranged for all the special education teachers to make sure that they're attending that PD as well, as we're pushing the inclusion. They're in the inclusion setting as well and utilizing that as well to hope that, that's going to make a difference as well. Yeah, we have percentage numbers that we're trying to target and get to.
Can I just add on that one quickly? So 2 things to your first point. Naomi kind of touched on it. The equity group of the 5 different areas, last year, so this is kind of almost like their first year, because last year we were doing that special ed opportunities review to really kind of do the deep dive into our specialized services and what areas we wanted to really focus on. That's when DM Group helped us really identify like the 2 or 3 big areas. One was that whole role of the para educator and trying to take a look at that and see how they can be better utilized to really support students and help them behaviorally and academically. And we did have, to your second point, and we still do have, the academic benchmarks that we're trying to reach, but they are all MCAS related. We're just now kind of focusing and doing that deeper dive with the special ed students at the same time we're doing the regular ed students, because that is the comparison point to make sure over the course of the year that we have that. But that doesn't take away at all the overarching goals that we had set. But again, being tied to MCAS, those are ones we only really can kind of measure once a year.
This is
I just wanted to comment that I know this isn't a quick fix at all, that saying that we're going to see big changes in 1 year isn't realistic. That special ed review that DM Group did was very, very clear, and some of the things that need to be done in terms of redefining the role of paras, and then therefore also looking at the then role of special educators. And this is the year to work and look at that, but then you have to start implementing it, and some of those things may be big changes. So I definitely recognize that we can't expect you to, in 1 year, fix all of this, because it may be a big shift in how the delivery takes place.
Right, and that's why I also think we really do want to spend time really thinking about how to deliver the information too, right? Because I do think it could be, a real shift, right? And so really thinking about kind of what is the best way to deliver that.
I mean, long-term, I think it can be great benefits.
Right.
But I recognize that it's going to take time, and just redefining the role of paras alone is not going to make it all happen right away.
Right.
It's a marathon.
It's
It's a
true,
marathon, it's
right.
not a sprint, yeah, to your point.
And also, the group, the consulting group, is still involved in Initiative 1.
Correct.
They are still part of the subgroup.
Right.
And helping guide that, which I think is very important.
Yeah.
To have an outside view of that.
I actually had wanted to talk a little bit about initiative number 1, because on the surface, it may seem like an outlier, about the role of the paraprofessional. But as you've talked, I think what I hear you saying is that the role of the paraprofessional is vital, and we have to figure out where it fits into this continuum of educational supports that we provide to to students. Is that fair to say?
Absolutely.
Okay. And then I was wondering if you could give us an idea I don't know if you have this yet, but when we're talking about this continuum of educational supports, what are we talking about here? Are we talking about programming, both, sub-separate, inclusion? Are we talking about, on that continuum?
Sure. I think this kind of morphed a little bit into what the current initiative is over a couple of months from last spring to starting the school year. But I think looking at that this equity group addresses not just students with disabilities, students with special education, but the gen ed students, the entire district. So looking at that, we were also trying to look at ways to kind of put some resources or a document, something in writing in place for Chelmsford. Like Amy referenced that technical guide that Desi had put out that we're kind of utilizing a little bit with some of our work. But really having something for Chelmsford that kind of even just outlines from tier 1, academic, social, emotional, the gamut of kind of supports that can be put into place for students. Because when we talk about that continuum, we use that word a lot in special education, focused on from least restrictive inclusion setting with special ed supports to, a sub-separate setting or an out-of-district placement. But there's a lot of supports and services that are and interventions that we have and are utilizing consistently in the district before that. And while I think identifying and putting that document together isn't, a lot of that is being done and is in place now, but I think it will give a resource to then kind of look at maybe the focus, and the hope is to kind of understand the real importance of, educating the majority of our students in the general ed setting where they're accessing that rich content.
It's really helpful for parents to be able to see, because I think, sometimes, and I don't mean to be speaking for you, so correct me if I'm wrong here, but sometimes students may be referred for an evaluation. We find out that they're not necessarily in need of special education services, but there will now be other things that we can use to support them in the general education setting. Because I think sometimes people feel like it's either this or that, and it's really not that, it's not that black and white.
Correct. And I think to that point, we can look back and look at other supports and interventions that can support students who may be struggling, but not because of a disability. However, it's also utilized to try interventions first before looking at something in doing a special education evaluation. And many times collecting data, doing those interventions consistently, students make progress and, things move along and that gap is closed. And they don't need to go through the evaluation process and all those hours of testing. However, that continuum, kind of outlines, it's there for a reason. Different students need different access at different levels of support.
Thank
I
you.
think, Donna, what you're also just getting at, just kind of reading
Yes,
into it, is
sure.
we do have a lot of non-special education
Right, yes.
supports for
Yes.
students, and I think this will be helpful for our general ed teachers.
Right.
Parents as well.
Parents,
To
yeah.
kind of know, beyond just the regular classroom instruction, if someone gets referred, let's say, to like a reading support, that's a
Right.
gen ed support. It's not
Right.
necessarily a special ed
Right.
support. What are the different steps that we can put in place? Certainly, they may eventually need a referral for SPED as part of the whole referral process, but there are a bunch of different steps that we can offer these supports and try to have there be one kind of clear and concise
Right.
document so that everyone knows what's available.
Right, yeah, that's exactly what I was getting at. You said it
Right.
much
No,
clearer.
I kind of had a feeling.
You know,
that's what you were
but
asking
yes,
for.
because I know that sometimes, it can be confusing for parents when they have concerns about, what will happen for my child.
And right, and I think parents, and then I also think for all staff, right? I
Right,
think, right, we know all of our teachers are so dedicated and they want to help students,
Right.
right? But I think for some, perhaps there's general ed teachers who, aren't aware, oh, that is something I can try, or that is something for my student, and so I think really the goal of this is to share this information with everyone, right, with the goal of helping our students.
You also mentioned too, not just in the areas of academics, but also taking a look at I know we're focused on the academic areas and using iReady, but we use other tools in the district to be able to give us information about where kids are at and what assistance they may need, for example, in the areas of SEL. Is that correct?
Yeah, and yes, I think a lot of these different priority areas in the strategic plan have some overlap.
Right.
There's overlap from the academic area with the equity group, and then there's overlap from the social emotional learning group, which I know hasn't presented yet, but will. So I think when we're talking about looking at a continuum of services, or maybe looking at interventions that we have put in place in the district to support our students who are economically disadvantaged, they cross those. They don't just focus on academic, it focuses on the whole child. So we look at the social emotional supports, attendance. Maria thank you for remembering and bringing up the social workers, because that's been a huge initiative that's supported
Panorama.
this whole group. And then utilizing the data from adding Panorama to the district as well to give
That's
all of
exactly
that
what we
in one-
want, right?
one set.
We want that dovetailing to, we want that overlap.
Right.
And that initiative that I'm in the subgroup for, the heads of those departments are basically also there. So, as second language learners and
SEL.
SEL,
Yeah.
yes, thank you.
And I think there's so many different reasons why students might struggle in a classroom. But I think when you get that continuum in the document, it's going to help not just parents, but even general ed teachers.
Right.
Who are aware of the different factors and therefore the different interventions that might be needed. And what one kid in your class might need isn't necessarily what someone else needs, so
Absolutely.
not everyone's aware of all of that.
Absolutely.
It's a lot of work.
Yeah.
Thank you very much.
Thank you.
Does anybody else have any other questions? No? Well, thank you for all of your hard work on this.
Thank you
Greatly
for having
appreciate
us.
it.
Thank you very much.
And thank you for always keeping me in the loop. I really appreciate it, because it's harder when you're working with somebody who's on the school committee and you guys see each other all the time and work together, so I appreciate that a lot. You've been tremendous in that.
You have a full-time job too, so we fit things in.
Thank you.
We make it work. We'll make it work.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Thank you.
Great. Thank you very much, guys. Have a good night. Continuing on with the agenda, the second item is some fantastic news. So we received official word last Wednesday that our application to the Massachusetts School Building Authority was successfully invited into the eligibility period. So as you recall, this is actually our sixth year. It does take some time to get these projects in the pipeline, but I was really excited to get the call and then to be on the MSBA agenda. We had submitted 4 times for the high school, and before we had changed up our path. And this was our second year applying for Parker with a different concept. This would be a middle school concept, but could not be happier that our application was viewed successfully, and attended the board meeting last Wednesday. There were a number of projects, I believe 19 in total, that got invited into eligibility, and Chelmsford's Parker Middle School was one. So you attached a copy of the award letter, or not the award letter, the invitation letter in your packet. And it's been 6 years to get to this point. It's probably another 6 years out as this process goes. So it is quite the long process. But eligibility is the very first step in the pipeline. It's a 270-day window, which, because there were 19 different projects that got invited into eligibility, they actually stagger the kind of start times just so that not everyone's kind of coming at them at the same time. So our official eligibility doesn't begin until April 1st. We're obviously going to start kind of preloading some of the work now, but technically, as of April 1st, our window begins, and then the 270 days ends right around this time next December, so right before the first of the year. And there were a number of different benchmarks that you have to reach during that time period. They're all laid out pretty nicely for you. I did put in your packet a little bit of a broader description about what the different 6 elements of this are. Some are pretty easy as far as doing the compliance statement and whatnot. We do, as a town, need to form a school building committee. There's a prescribed list of members. They have to meet certain backgrounds or whatnot. That's a standard type thing that happens. There's an educational profile, which will actually take some time for us to work on in the first segment of the work. We have to really define what currently happens at Parker Middle School, how we utilize the space, what the deficiencies are. A lot of that work will come from the statement of interest that we submitted, but we have to kind of go in and now do a little bit deeper dive, because right down to the classroom, what it's being used for, we need to identify now. And again, we have now only 5th and 6th graders at Parker, where originally we had 5 to 8, so we're going to have to do a little bit of work with Principal Blagg and his staff over there to work on the educational profile. That also kind of helps as a visioning for like what we would like to see potentially happen with this school. So I see, one of 3 potential options, and what the MSBA is going to want to do is actually work with us to figure out what is the best solution for Chelmsford. When we got into this plan, one would be a new middle school for the entire town that would encompass grades, 5 to 8. That would be a very large middle school, probably 1,600 plus students. It would almost be the equivalent of a high school. I don't necessarily think that was anyone's preferred wish, but because it's a middle school project, that's one of the ones that will get looked at. Because if that did happen, you would still have the McCarthy building for a swing space or an alternate use. The 2 probably more likely options would be just a 1-for-1 replacement of Parker Middle School, 2-strand, 2-grade level middle school of about 800 students. Or we also said at the time, as a district, we're really having an enrollment crunch, and we know this enrollment crunch is going to be happening over the next 5 to 10 years. One of the things that we could look at as a community is potentially a new grade 4, 5, 6. And by doing that, we'd be able to actually take a grade level out of our existing elementary schools to expand their use and their life, because we've already added 22 modular classrooms that are full. And we really, potentially could use a new elementary school as well. But this would actually allow that to benefit the town, keep using those 4 elementary schools. Everyone in town's grade 4, 5, 6 would go to this new building, so it really wouldn't be a have and have-nots. Everyone in town would get to benefit from it, and then they would go off to McCarthy for 7, 8, and then off to the high school for 9, 12. So that'll all also come out of the educational profiling. We have to do the formalized enrollment projection. This is something that we'll do on our own. MSBA has their own formula and way of developing enrollment. They take a look at trends, and then they also look for future expansion in town and whatnot. Well, we're not required to. What I'd like to do is actually have NESDEC come back. They were the group that did the formalized enrollment projection for us a couple of years ago. It's not a significant cost, and they do a very thorough report. I've contacted them to see if we could actually have them do another formalized projection. That would be on us. That wouldn't be part of this MSBA project, but I think that could be valuable just to make sure we're not missing anything when we're submitting our request for enrollment for consideration, because there is some potential new development coming up in town. I just want to make sure that we're really asking for everything we possibly can in this potential build. We then actually have a meeting with the MSBA to take a look at our numbers, to take a look at their numbers, and we agree on, if we were to do a 4, 5, 6, how many students we'd be building for. If we were to do just a 5, 6, how many? If we were to do a 5, 8, how many? That all happens because that ties into potential funding in the future for how much you'd be reimbursed on. Then there's another segment of the work where we'll have to work closely with DPW because we have to define what we currently do to maintain our buildings previously, what is our historic care for the buildings, because if the MSBA is going to partner with us on a project, they want to make sure if they're going to invest money in it, we're going to continue to maintain it. And I think we'll be able to display that we've done a very good job at that. Too good in some cases to not be able to qualify earlier for their program. But that is a lot of work as well. So that work will be happening this spring and early summer. And then, bless you, we need what's called the local vote authorization. So in this particular phase of the work, and I've had conversations with Town Manager Cohen, because of the way this is lining up between April 1 and basically the end of next December, we have two different town meetings. We have April town meeting and we have fall town meeting. And what we need to do is, I don't know exactly what the dollar amount's going to be. I'm sifting through the projects that were recently funded to just get a scale. It's probably in the $1.5 million range is what we would need for just the feasibility study. So that would be a local vote that we would need support of town meeting for to be able to fund the feasibility study, which ultimately is reimbursed at whatever your reimbursement rate is. But that allows you to hire the project manager and the architect to do all of the work on phase 2, which is when you're invited into what they call feasibility. So then you would actually kind of vet out these 3 options. You would vet out spaces. This is all next January, a year from now on. You would ultimately, as a community, have discussion around, what is the best option? Where is the best option to put this? Get to the point where once you agree, there's different check-ins with the MSBA along the way, but once you agree, you would actually start to build out your proposal so that you could actually cost out what it would cost. And then you would be ready to, once the MSBA signs off on it, go to the town for a more formal vote to fund the entire project. So that would be some type of a debt exclusion, debt override. That would be somewhat of a town-wide vote. Just the way that the timeline is working on this, MSBA, again, kind of tells you like when they think you'll be at that stage. And they don't think our particular grouping would be at that stage until, I believe it was like August of '26. So we're still like 2 years away. There's 2 years of work in there before you get to that point. But, not to get too far ahead of ourselves, this first, basically 9 months of work that's ahead of us is going to get us to the point of vote locally accepting this and providing that seed money for the feasibility study. And then we would enter into the feasibility agreement with the department. And then hopefully January 1 of '25, we would be invited into feasibility and we would begin about a potentially 1.5 to 2 year long project to get to the point where we were ready to get town funding, MSBA funding, finalize your drawings and go out to bid. So like I said, a lot of work to be done. We did a lot, but we're very excited to be at this point.
On the timeline, when we're looking at bringing it to the town for the initial local vote, like next fall, what do you think?
So as early as this coming April,
You're thinking, okay, that's what,
the latest October.
okay. So
But in talking to Paul, because we usually do most of the financial articles in the spring, I'd like to see if we could actually do this in the spring. The other issue is if you wait until October, it just doesn't give you much wiggle room in case something ever were to happen at the meeting, in case people had questions or whatnot. There's not a time to defer and come back. So my instinct would be to try to do this in April. You don't have to necessarily do these stages in order. So I did have a conversation with Diane Sullivan from the MSBA, and they understand like when town meetings happen to fall in different communities, that you try to use those dates. You don't want to have a separate vote just for something like that. So I'm thinking the April town meeting, but we need to finalize that in January. Worst case scenario, it'd have to be fall of '24, but it's coming up at one of the next 2 town meetings.
Okay, so with that being, our hope to do that, what do we need to do as a committee to get the word out there, to put this on people's plates, do we need to do a public forum? I don't know, what can we do? Because, people need to know this is our project, this is why we're doing it, and, so when it comes to that vote, they understand all the information.
Right. So my two thoughts on that one were, I am working with Jenny, our new communications director, to kind of revamp a page on the website to just actually have one kind of repository for all of this information so that the public can go and see it, right down to this award letter, to all the work we had done to kind of get to this point. So that's certainly in the works. I think we're going to have to work between now and, end of January, maybe February vacation, kind of strategizing on this. I don't think it would be a bad idea to have a couple of community forums. I think we do have to be careful because all we can really kind of comment on now is like this short-term process, but we can talk to people about like what the long-term trajectory is. I certainly can for future meetings, even just publicly, because we do get an audience that watches these meetings or even the replays. Maybe come up with some different segments to talk about like the various aspects of the work that's ahead, kind of why we're doing the work, just to track the work. And then I do think it would be important for us, I know the town manager has like a kind of a if this is gonna happen in April, has like a pre-town meeting to really kind of talk about the merits of different warrant articles. I think we would want to get ahead of that and also present at that, be able to talk at that. Potentially meet or talk with the finance committee to kind of inform them on this project. Because this is a big initiative for us coming down the line, not just like a run-of-the-mill article that we may have. So we do need to kind of strategize about that. But I think over the holidays, we can maybe map something out.
I think one of the things I'm gonna do, and I've been doing it already, is when I go to meetings, PTOs and so on, I do talk about it and what's going on. I think it's important for people to know. And at those meetings, I always ask parents to really consider becoming a town rep, and if they can. And really realizing that in the long run, where the money goes is important in our town. A lot of it goes towards education in Chelmsford, which is very important. There are other important things in the town as well, many services. So they need to understand that, and when we're gonna go down the line for this vote, everybody needs to do that. But there should be enough representation at town meeting that includes the percentage of the money of the town that is spent towards education. So consider doing that, it's an important goal. I know this is not we can't, we're not gonna be pushing for politics, but we wanna make sure that people who have a stake in what happens in the town in terms of education are representing and are being represented when it comes to votes. So I do take the opportunity to talk to people.
Right. I think there's also potential, you mentioned like the PTOs, good night, happy holidays. You mentioned the, like the PTOs, but I think there's also an important role that the PTOs and even the council of schools can play in maybe co-hosting some talks with us. Put a little roadshow together, and I'm certainly willing to go out to individual PTOs and talk about it. But maybe even when we get on the agenda for, I know there's a January council meeting. Under my updates, I'll certainly have this as an item, but it's bigger than just like a topic to cover, so you really need to kind of carve out some time. I'll think about how to best do that and really kind of hit the ground running in January.
I do think, I agree with Dennis, I think we need a public forum because it is not only the parents of our school-aged children that we're going to be seeking the support from.
Right.
And they may not have access to that information through the PTO meetings or the council of schools. I also think that there's, a couple other things out there that people may have questions about. And, without wading into the weeds too much, but, one of the topics of discussion has been the fact that we're an MBTA town. And, what is that going to mean, for development, and how will that impact our schools and things like that? So I think there's a lot of questions out there that people may have. And I have a question, like, for example, on the feasibility study, funding, it's reimbursable, correct?
Yes, based on your percentages.
Right. And then I guess my question is, like, what happens if it doesn't come to fruition? Is it still reimbursable?
I don't know that happens often. I would have to find out and get an answer for you.
So, no, it's okay. I was just, but just, things like that, I'm just, these are things that are just popping into my head,
Right.
As I've been thinking about it over the last couple of weeks. And I'm sure there are people out there that have far more questions. So I think the more we can do to answer those questions, or at least to say we can answer those questions.
Right.
But, you know, it's certainly on our radar. I think that's going to be very important.
Place to say we should be busy in the next couple months.
Yeah, yeah.
Yeah, this is honestly, I mean, at this point on, like, these windows come quickly, so this is like really gonna be a very hectic period of time indefinitely. This will be a lot.
I just wanted to say, so we've been doing this for 6 years now. So I think the interesting thing about this work is you'll keep pushing towards a goal. Like first it was we had to get the modulars, and then the next thing, and the next thing, and then the applications. Well, like all the really hard work. And then now that we have this letter, now the really hard work starts again. So I think not just in terms of the school committee though, but I think for the community as a whole, you can drive around Chelmsford and see buildings being built. You can see multi-unit housing. We need housing in Chelmsford. But that also increases, the school population. So I think the people in town can kind of see the growth now. I think people realize we're on the border of Lowell, and Lowell's gonna keep pushing out, and those people are gonna keep coming to a beautiful town like Chelmsford for amazing schools and all of that. So it's my hope that with the work we do with the community and with the town meeting reps and with just generally everybody that is a state shareholder, is that they realize what it opportunity this is to give to the future of their community, right? To the future students of Chelmsford, and to leave some kind of legacy from their time here. So I'm really proud of the fact that we've even got it accepted. I just don't think I realized how much work it was gonna be or how long it was gonna take. I honestly only thought I was gonna be on the school committee for 3 years. So who knows? Here I am. So, but yeah, so I hope we'll all go out and we'll do the work, and we'll go meet with the community and we'll talk about it. But at the end of the day, I think the community's gonna be ready when we get to those points, those big key
There's
points.
a couple, I mean, just in my initial conversations with people I've been having, I think there's like 3 things that I've been kind of hitting on. Number one, and this has come up in like tri-board meetings and our select board meetings, so no one is surprised by this, but we have a very aging school building existence in Chelmsford. You know, our newest building is 50 years old this year at the high school. And the elementary schools and the middle schools are older than that. So like that is our newest space. And most of the communities around us have been doing building, and they've been kind of staggering their builds. And we really haven't done any new construction, obviously, in 50 years. So I think the opportunity to work with the MSBA on this project is huge. In the end, it's going to be a ballpark 50-50 split. So half of the money is going to be paid by the state. Yes, it's going to be expensive. Half of the money would have to come from the town, but that's certainly better than 100% of the money coming from the town for a project if you don't partner with the MSBA at some point. And so that's been one, just the age of the buildings. 2, we are certainly experiencing an enrollment incline. You know, we've been witnessing it ourselves for the last number of years. And with the new growth, with West Campus and whatnot, some of these other developments, over the next 3 to 5 years, we're going to start to see additional kids coming to our schools, which we welcome. But we're maxed out. You know, our elementary schools, again, are fine buildings because they've been very well maintained. But each have, 22 modular classrooms is like an extra elementary school already. Now, the classrooms are super nice. I mean, they're like modular buildings. They're not like their old modular classrooms. But, we are already maxed out at that level, and we need more space, somewhere. To be able to do this type of a project in one project, to get a new, grade 4, 5, 6 middle school potentially, and free up, 100 seats at each of the elementary schools, because that grade configuration, I think, would be very significant for the town to just, again, allow for a much longer kind of building out of the rest of the spaces within the town. So that's the second thing I've been hitting on. I think that's why it's going to be important for us to really let people know, yes, we have an aging stock, but our enrollment is increasing, and we have to do something. It's not that we really have an option.
The enrollment is, I was actually quite shocked to find out, elementary in particular, so many grades have 5 sections now.
Yeah.
I mean, that used to be an anomaly, and now it's becoming more of the norm. So these schools are really getting
Right.
crowded.
Another thing too, one of the things I think we came up, one of the meetings is how much extra money we're spending as a community just to keep Parker up and running, right? It's a significant amount of capital every year just to keep that kind of school running. I just think there's a lot that people hopefully will understand and will be able to communicate in a really good way.
Well, and
I think we need it as a community, so.
when you look at Parker, as far as the building is concerned, again, we're putting a lot of resources into maintaining that building so that the kids who are going through it now and, you know, even for the next number of years until there's a potential new school, are still getting a top-quality education. But that building is operating largely in part of 11 modular classrooms at that one site, just to be able to manage the number of students that we have. And those aren't the new modular classrooms. Those are the old school modular classrooms that we have. You know, we're having to put new heating systems in them. We had to put new floors in this past year just because of some of the structural issues we were having.
I just wonder, because they are at or past our life expectancy,
They passed.
okay.
Right, yes. I
Right,
mean, we're
right.
kind of, you know, Band-Aiding and keeping.
Right, that's,
functional
yes,
at this
yes,
point.
yes.
But no, those buildings are past their life. I want to make sure people understand at the elementary level, those are beautiful new spaces. Those buildings are rated, you know, 25 to 30 years. The modular classrooms that say at Parker were originally only a 10 to, you know, 15-year.
We're a temporary solution.
It's a temporary building, and, you know, we've already exceeded the lifetime. So we're just basically repairing and patching and kind of keeping them together. But there has to be a longer-term fix. So I really am hopeful at the end of this. I think we can make a very compelling argument. I think we've done our due diligence on this whole process. Working with the MSBA is a good opportunity for this town to be able to partner on a project and really receive half of the funding back from the state. And I do think this sets us up for 10-plus years, you know, as far as helping with enrollment growth. So I'll start to kind of like lay this out, and we'll figure out different ways to publicize and start to work on this, but it's an exciting first step.
I don't know if, I did participate in that meeting, listening to what was going on in the other schools and so on. The other people that got into this process, that were accepted for the process. And I listened carefully for the reasons, and as the secretary kept on talking about, you know, it's for this reason, that reason, we were one of the few, I think only of two projects that it's because our capacity is running out. So the others were, for many other reasons, you know, they're not in compliance with certain things. But for us, it's also because of capacity. It's for more than one reason. So that was very eye-opening to see what was being done and not being done, what's being funded and what's not being funded. Not as many high schools, of course, but there were a few. But they're very, very old schools that are being replaced.
Yeah, the high schools that get funded are more like in the urban center
Yeah.
schools, and they are significantly older than high
Yes.
schools, which I think was part of the reason that we were just up against it on the high school application, because our school, again, is only 50 years old. Some of these others are over 100 years old, and we're very well maintained with some of the other ones.
Yes, and the other thing I wanted to say is, as part of that meeting, thank you to our state reps. They did come, they did listen to us, and I think Simon was there.
Simon, yeah, he spoke.
Simon was on the road, but he was trying to just show his support and spoke. And I also want to thank Mr. Arciero, because he had his own project to, well, a greater portion of the town that he represents, which is Westford, and he was also supportive of us. So it's really great to see that, and I'm thankful for that.
Great, thank you, and thank you for all of your hard work on this for the last number of years
it's
submitting
exciting
these
work.
applications.
Congratulations.
Thank you. Third item tonight is a recommended budget transfer. I'm going to ask Joanna to cover.
Thank you. There's a one-page memo in your packet requesting a fiscal year '24 budget transfer for $23,023 to cover a couple of costs at the McCarthy Middle School. We, as part of the science lab renovations, we have learned we need additional abatement services, which were revealed when we were doing the plumbing updates. And then there's also a small amount in this figure for the design specifications and bid documents for the vestibule project at the McCarthy Middle School. The superintendent will go over the approved fiscal year '25 capital list in this agenda. And this is just the only component that'll be funded from our local budget to kind of get the project going. So then we can start kind of out the gate in fiscal '25. Should this be approved, this project be approved at town meeting. Any questions?
So is this work in the science lab work that's been done or is still pending to be done?
It's a little bit of both. It's a scheduling thing with when to do this work, when the rooms are free, and scheduling the services and that. I think we're up to four shifts where originally we thought it would be done in 2.
As I drove back to the building tonight, the abatement crew is actually there now. So if all goes well, the abatement should be done tonight, and then over the vacation week, the final plumbing will be all touched up, so that we're just done with that completely. But and as you get into some of these older buildings, you just don't know what's behind the walls, and there was just additional abatement that had to get done. So it's been done off hours, and I'm hoping to just get this all wrapped up over the Christmas break. And the only reason, we recommended kind of starting the specifications for the McCarthy vestibule project is if we wait until April for town meeting to approve the project, there's not enough time to get someone on board to write them to go out to bid, so the work can be done this summer. And for relatively small money, we wanted to be able to just get that done now, so that we can actually go to bid in April, get the town meeting approval for the funding at the town meeting, and then award a contract and get the work scheduled for the summer.
Just
Does anybody have any other questions? All right, then I'll take a motion.
Right, I make a motion, the school committee approve the FY 2024 local operating budget transfer for $23,023 from the account noted to the local capital land and buildings account as presented.
Second.
All right, is there any further discussion or questions? All right then, Dennis?
Aye.
John?
Aye.
Susan?
Aye.
Maria? Aye.
You were just keen if I was paying attention there.
5-0 in favor.
That's what that was.
Before we move on, how are we doing in the area, McCarthy?
No. Thank you for that save.
It is complete.
Oh, cafeteria is complete? All right, great.
The cafeteria at McCarthy is complete.
Awesome.
And they had their opening lunch, was it December?
Week ago Monday.
Yeah, a week ago Monday. And students were excited, staff is excited. It turned out really beautiful.
Great.
And I think it'll be a beautiful kitchen for years and years and years.
Great.
Thank you.
It did come out very nice.
Yeah.
So anyone is welcome to pop over anytime and take a peek at it.
Last time we said it was just big holes in the floor.
Yeah, that wasn't good. Yeah. It's
The wires hanging down.
the wire's hanging, but no, it was the work that had to be done with the grease traps.
Yeah,
It
right.
just opened up the whole floor. So, no, it came out beautiful. So, yeah, if you'd like to go over someday, certainly for lunch, but even just to take a look at the space, we can take a walk through.
exciting.
Okay, next item on the agenda is the proposed school calendar for next year, which is the 24-25 school year. You have that in front of you with the, we would have staff orientation on Monday, the 26th. That's maintaining the start the week before Labor Day. The kids would then come back on Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. We would take the 4-day weekend, as we have been doing over the last number of years. That's actually been positively received, so we like that. And then the calendar denotes the different professional development days, summer half-days, summer full days in blue, and then the vacation weeks in the maroon. And then we always schedule in 6 extra days just for weather, but obviously if they don't happen, then they get taken off the calendar.
The best thing, 2 full weeks at
I saw that.
holiday break next year.
Well, this,
Yeah.
Linda doesn't agree with this. So this is the, and I didn't think this was going to happen for another year.
Yeah.
So, but because of leap year, this year, it bumped Christmas to Wednesday, because usually it would just be a day delayed. But we had done this the last time in 1819, and it actually, we got very good feedback. You wouldn't go back to school Monday, the 23rd anyway, for one day. So you would only go back on Tuesday the 2nd, Thursday the 5th. Quite honestly, attendance is typically not good those couple days for students, or we have some staff issues sometimes coming back from vacations or whatnot. And, well, schools are already kind of out for the week and a half. Taking the extra 2 days and just having it be 2 complete weeks was well received. I actually got very good feedback from the staff, loved it, and the parents too, because they were able to actually schedule vacations if they were going to and not be competing with everyone trying to come back on certain days. So, yeah, the recommendation would be to have the 2 full weeks for next year, and it still works out at the end of the year.
Linda, why did you not agree with this?
I think it's great.
Thank God you're not in
Would be
charge.
labeled the Grinch.
I think it's great.
Linda wanted them to come back Monday before.
I can't wait to get.
No, I just get worried when we get close to the end of the school year, because I'm still kind of reeling from when we had to extend the school day, just those kind of things make me a little nervous, but I think we'll be great.
Yeah, I mean, there's always the concern about, like, if you had 10 or 12 snow days, then you're kind of backing up into the end of June. But even with the 6 days built in, you're only at the 25th. I'm hoping we're still going to be out the week of the 16th, so.
Can I vote on this now?
What do you mean?
Are we voting on this tonight?
No,
you-
next meeting.
Well, I was saying no.
I just want to take a little closer look at this.
Well, it's.
I just want to lock in this 2-week thing. I don't have everything else.
No, it's your purview. I just make the recommendation. This, like I said, everything else kind of conforms with what we've had. And it's,
The professional days are similar, we try to mix those up between Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursdays, not to burden anybody. There's 3 Tuesdays, 3 Wednesdays, and 3 Thursdays on the calendar.
And is there stuff built up for elections? I know there was an
Yeah,
issue with the
this
election
was just
stuff.
the anomaly this year. We're gonna have to remember 4 years from now that in March, good luck. We're gonna have to remember 4 years from now that there will be that March
state
presidential primary. Yep. The only other glitch
Presidential.
that's out there too is like, the state primaries, that when we, they didn't have that date one year in September, and we needed to move the September date for the half day, again, because McCarthy has the voting at the school. That's really the primary reason for the change.
yeah, as we looked at this, and even like when Tricia sent out, at least right now, the known dates, the only date that I can't recommend accommodating is Tuesday, September 3rd. That's the primary day, but it's following us being out of school for 4 days. So it would be like doing 3 days, taking 5 off, then coming back for 4. We're gonna be in school for the half day anyway. We'll have to, again, it could be busy, but we'll have to just make sure we have extra monitoring over there. But I can't recommend taking that day off. We do in November, which is the actual election.
Do we want to have a motion, or would you like to wait till next meeting?
I always feel like that there's one day that, I know this is gonna sound crazy, that we end up having to change something because we forgot something on the calendar, and I, of course, can't remember what it is.
It's usually the election day.
It's the election
So
days.
what
It's
has
the election
happened-
days.
Yeah.
There was one that happened in, by omission in April one year.
Yes,
And then there was obviously the primary one that
Okay.
happened, changing just the date over.
Yeah, what happened this past year was, I think it was the town election day.
right,
We had the professional development half-day on the
Right,
Wednesday.
right.
So just a meeting or two ago, we ended up moving it to the
right,
Tuesday.
right, okay.
But that was only moving up a half professional development day, from Wednesday to Tuesday.
And then the only other thing I guess I had a question on is if you wanted to include that green box and the key at the bottom of the page. You have a green box for kindergarten orientation, but it's not
Have a what?
included in the key. Right there,
No, green just means everyone goes to school.
everyone goes to school. Okay.
Green is go.
Green for go.
Green to go.
Green is a go.
Green to go, okay, sorry. Okay, sorry, I was
Well,
reading
no,
it as,
the 27th is grades 1 to 9 only, but
Right, okay.
everyone's going.
all right, fine.
Should have a red for the last day then.
We don't know when that is.
But that's a moving target.
It is a moving target.
It's only 1 through.
Usually at April school vacation.
Yes, I was looking at the
we're done
bottom.
with snow,
Okay.
and we
Bottom
can't tell what.
right-hand
We don't know
corner.
yet which is
We don't
where to
know
put the
what it
red
is.
box.
This
I'm just
page,
giving you a hard time.
and there's
So-
yellow and blue boxes, but there was no green, so I just didn't know if that meant something.
So just so I understand, September 3rd is the primary, and it's not a half day,
Correct,
it's a full day.
correct.
Work it out.
We did
But we're
that.
getting more help, police.
Well, the school has, again, I do think the relocation of the rooms has been helpful. Because
Okay.
like we're not, the mods at McCarthy are
Right.
not the world language mods anymore. So
Right.
you don't have classes every period going back there. So that has helped. And the police have been excellent as far as
Yes.
kind of helping at the crossways there. And, for one day, I'm happy to give some extra staff over there as well to make it go smoothly. I just can't see coming back from a 4-day weekend and doing a half day. People just aren't going to come to school. I don't see doing anything other than a full day.
It's fine.
I do want to say, in the past, Tricia Zerbs has been very good about working with us to, or has been open to our recommendations about ways we can make things safer, and has purchased some gates and whatnot to help with when kids were transitioning. So, I think if people have some ideas or, specific concerns, then, bring them forward, because we can certainly find ways to be able to address that. But I know from the town side that they recognize our concerns and are trying to help us be able to address them.
Would you like a motion?
Sure.
Okay. I make a motion to approve the 2024-25 school year calendar as presented.
Second.
Okay, is there any further discussion or questions? All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0 in favor.
Was one reluctantly?
Was that?
Was one reluctantly in favor?
No.
I'm just.
I just always feel like, then we go, oh, we forgot about whatever it was. But I think you're right, it's the
We may,
elections.
but it was only the matter of moving the half-day to help with
Yep.
the elections.
Yep.
Okay. Next item on the agenda tonight is just an update on the capital planning process that took place over the course of the last couple of months. 2 or 3 meetings ago, we went through the list of school department capital projects that we were recommending for approval and prioritized them. Dennis served on the committee to help evaluate all the town projects. I would say this year in particular, and I think you heard at the tri-board meeting, John Souza and Paul both talked about just an incredible amount of projects that came forward from all town departments as far as the total dollar amounts. I think this was the first year the ask had exceeded 10 million. It was 11.2 million. After we had done the votes that evening, 6 of the capital projects that are school-related or benefit the schools totaling 2.4 million were approved. And what I indicated was, if we look at those on the third sheet, the ones that ended up getting approved were a partial roof replacement here at this room in the back office, at central office here, a boiler replacement project at Westlands Elementary School, the ceiling tile replacement project at South Row, the classrooms and the hallways, that's the replacement of those ceiling tiles. Donna, you've been on that PTO.
Yep.
That's been an issue for a number of years. An elevator replacement at McCarthy, the front entryway McCarthy, to help with the security improvements of that school. And then some seed money for the roof replacement at McCarthy, which is going to be necessary. The thought on that one was originally there was 1.2 million that was being allocated or recommended for the back portion of the roof, which covered the cafeteria and the gymnasium area. When we got to talking about it, the funding was so tight that if it got approved in April, there was no way to quickly enough turn around the bid docs and get out to bid to get the project done this summer anyway. What they decided to do was there was about $1.2 million on the roof that was scheduled for this first phase, and like a year later or 2 years later, there was another big section of McCarthy roof that was like another $1.5 million or so that needed to be replaced. They decided to request $250,000 to be able to hire the engineer to put together and do the testing and put together the specifications basically for both sections, so that potentially in this coming fall, the town manager had talked about it bringing it forward just as a separate project, because it's going to kind of clog up the works with some of these other just smaller capital projects. If not, we would at least have the bid docs ready and everything for both projects to come up singularly, so that seemed to make sense. From the list that the school committee had prioritized of our truly school-specific projects, the 2 that were not recommended, that we had ranked like 4 and 5 that were high for us, were the art room renovation at the high school, So there were several votes to support it. There just weren't enough votes to have it kind of move far enough up to get funding. And then the tennis court project, the whole reconfiguration at McCarthy, didn't get enough support to be able to move up this year. Other than that, the projects from the schools that didn't get moved forward were the Parker projects, which we had kind of ranked low anyway, and we were kind of waiting to see what was going to happen with the Parker application. So I'm not, given the recommendation with the eligibility period, I'm not, terribly upset that those aren't going to move forward. But I do think that we should take a look at when we have our one-time money this coming spring, like we normally do with some of these other projects, whether it's the art rooms or, we have to talk about the whole kind of the tennis and the recreational space at McCarthy. We did have the working group that put together some thoughts on the process. We ended up hiring that Kessel Booze group who's been working with us to put some concepts together. We actually have some draft stuff coming in now, so I think we'll be able to reconvene after the first of the year and just take a look at some schematics and like what could potentially go there. What the committee's gonna have to wrestle with, in my opinion, is that, although it's on a school property, the concepts are really very recreational, that are really benefiting more the town as opposed to the school. If it were truly just a project to benefit the school, I don't know if the school would say, well, we'd use it for a different, space or a different setting. Like we talked about just outdoor classrooms and things like that. So I don't know if the school department's gonna want, or the school committee's gonna wanna allocate your own funding to fund like a town recreational area, as opposed to, if it's not gonna get legs in the town capital committee, then do you wanna go back and look at it as just a truly school beneficial project? And if you're gonna have to allocate funding to do something, do it that way. I don't know. I mean, for tonight, you don't have to worry about it, because it just didn't make the list of recommendations, but I think just in the back of your minds, be kind of thinking about what we wanna do. And John, when we reconvene the group, we can just kind of have that conversation too. Because, it's much easier to say, the art rooms are in the high school, and it's certainly benefiting the kids, day and year round. Putting additional tennis courts or pickleball court at McCarthy isn't necessarily impacting the school program during the day. Right, and do you want to use educational resources to do that? And that's a you decision. I can help you either way, but I just think that's going to necessitate a bigger conversation.
I did have one question. Was part of the discussion around the tennis courts, was there any discussion, I should say, around using community preservation funds?
I asked that question, and they said probably wouldn't fall into community preservation funds. I forget the reasoning for it, but I did ask the question.
I did ask the question. I'll back him up.
Okay.
Paul had said it was because it had already been developed, and it was already, that's my understanding, it was already like a tennis court, so it wasn't like a first-time project being done. It's basically like a reconditioning or repurposing of the space, so he didn't feel it would fall into CPC.
So the reason I asked that is just because some of it was renovation and some of it was new, right? And I'm wondering if that part of that new project, when you're meeting, would be worth discussing,
Worth a shot.
in terms of going for some
Yeah, if that
CPC
committee
funds.
wants to advocate,
Yeah,
back to the town towards,
right.
that group.
Because I personally would feel better, supporting the project, with another group or in town, because you're right, I think it's, it indirectly benefits us. The art rooms directly benefit us. So I think that
Now,
makes sense.
the other thing is this may have just, this obviously was a record year as far as requests are concerned.
Right.
In a more traditional year, maybe this would have had legs. Maybe it would have been one of those projects that said, you know what? It's $430,000. If we're able to get $300,000 through town meeting, can the school department kick in the remaining 130 and do the
Right.
project? Like, we've done that kind of stuff before. And that's got a little different flavor than just doing the whole project.
If you look at the list, it's a big ask for the town with the 5.7, but it's roofs, it's elevators, it's, it's public safety stuff.
Fire trucks.
There's no frills. There's
No,
no
not at
frills in
all.
this list at all.
Right.
We had a hard time just, saying, okay, the senior center, we can do an elevator, but we can't do the full floor, even though we know that they need the floor. It was a tough, as big as the numbers are, it was tough to make those decisions. So something like the art rooms and, the tennis courts, when you weigh it against the public safety and and the building infrastructure, the vehicles that are 185,000 miles on them, and, the tires are falling off, it's kind of hard to weigh in on the side of the tennis courts and the art rooms.
I
So
completely agree.
I have a question. So what town department funds things like the playgrounds and the pickleball courts over at Varney and things like that? Who funds that?
I don't know if there's necessarily a town, I assume
does
it
that
would
come
fall
from?
under like DPW. Like there
Yeah.
is no like Parks and Recreation Department in town.
Yeah.
So like when they did the playground over at, what's the,
Arnie,
is it Varney?
the one in North Chelmsford?
Yeah, North Chelmsford, when they did that. I think that was like a special appropriation from town meeting to basically have the funding be made available. And then DPW, and they do have an individual over there, his first name's Steve, his last name's escaping me, Callahan, that, he's a great guy. He helped us with Center School playground. Like, we funded the playground, but then he would help kind of do the legwork to get it all in. He did the same thing for the Varney playground. But there's no, not my knowledge, there's no like town department that just has like funding for that.
But it almost seems to me like the tennis courts belong under that category because the tennis courts are really just more used by residents, where Center School playground is used every single day by Center School students. But the tennis courts are really more of a town.
Well, which is, I
That's
think,
why
why
we're not
we were
putting
putting
tenant,
it
yeah.
forward on the town meeting. Like, it wasn't necessarily coming from the schools. Do you know what I mean? We were kind of tasked with doing it.
Yeah.
Because it fell on school property.
Yeah.
And the town wouldn't want to put something on school property that we just adamantly were opposed to. That's how it kind of got lumped into our list, and we took the lead on doing it, because we'd love a space that the kids can use during the school day, for phys ed class or recess or things like that. But, yeah, it really, outside of school, it doesn't benefit
Yeah.
the town. And the town would be maintaining it. We wouldn't be maintaining it.
And the idea came from town meeting. It didn't come from us saying we need to do something with it. It came during a town meeting where they wanted to put a parking lot extension for the police station. And people said, no, we want something else. And
Right.
that's how the whole committee came about.
Right.
Are they still gonna dig up the tennis courts even?
Yeah, they're already in process on
Okay.
that.
Yeah.
Yeah, so the tennis courts themselves, they started, I think, a week ago Monday. They were not playable. The condition was poor, so the highway department, they helped us out at the high school with the basketball and the street hockey court where that was so dilapidated. Because it wasn't snowing, the street department had extra time, so they went and started doing the demolition.
Because they were-
So it's in I drove by the other day, a lot of the fence was down and the courts were already up, but they'll basically bring it down to earth level, and then it'll just remain graded until we decide what we want to do with it. But it was easier when they had downtime to just get the demo done, because that removes the cost from the whole project, and then whoever coming in is really just doing the new project.
Yeah, just quickly, I mean, I'm on that committee, so I never really thought it was gonna be fast. I thought there would be some work. And open space projects and like public, I mean, it's not an elevator, right? So you have to, so the timing has to be right. We'll just keep working on it and keep looking at ideas and we'll figure it out. I'm not opposed to using school funds for at least part of it. But again, we'll figure it out.
And I think you raise a fair point that there's nothing fluffy in this.
No frills.
This is a
Not
good
at all.
budget.
Yeah.
It's a good capital budget and I can't complain about it just because open space is important, but again, it's a long-term community. It's a commitment to get to those projects.
And another thing that, I didn't realize till we got into the thing, we had our list and we prioritized the list, but there were other school items on the DPW list, such as this roof and the Westlands boiler that fall under, as part of our share of the capital, so.
Right.
No.
And we can coordinate that for next year too, so you see like the full list.
Right.
But DPW is the one that really, like, they maintain the buildings.
Yeah.
So they maintain like the roof inventory, the boilers and things like that. So they have a whole kind of schedule for when they think things should be done. And obviously, that's like the nuts and bolts of keeping the schools going. Those things are important to maintain.
We know it does rain in here sometimes.
Yes, we can confirm that.
And just for historical perspective, just a few years back, the annual capital appropriation used to be closer to 3 million. It kind of creeped up to 3.2, 3.3, it was 3.8, but it was, I believe, under 4 million for the last number of years. So this is a significant kind of jump in investment, I think, because of just the scope of the projects. And again, these are like nuts and bolt things that really need to get done.
Yeah, and the new DPW director did do a lot of legwork, surveying the roofs and the elevators and, really kind of, put together a list of, this roof has a year, this roof has 5 years, and, so.
Yeah, I think that the scope, but also just the cost
I know.
of everything, that certainly, is a big factor to consider, so.
And don't go buying a fire truck anytime soon.
No, I know, that's
Cost
crazy.
of that, oh.
It'll be 4 years before they see it.
Yeah, I was surprised to just hear that.
Yeah,
The
41
how
months.
long it takes, even when you buy a fire truck, how long it takes you to physically get it. It's like 44 to 48
They
months.
build them custom.
I know, but that's just a long lead time.
I'm surprised too.
Yeah.
You need it. Can't do without it.
Absolutely.
41 months.
It's amazing.
Just shy of 40.
Never knew, never thought about it, I guess.
So, and really no action, I guess, required. You'd already voted to submit the projects. These are just the ones that got submitted. These will now go forward to the April town meeting, and then pending positive action there, we'll get these scheduled.
Thank you, Dennis, for
It
representing.
was a good committee to work on.
That's a good, very good group, yeah. Next item is the proposed budget calendar for next year, just the timeline to get you some dates on your calendars. This is consistent with what we've done in previous years. The town manager typically, just to remind you, the last Monday in January by charter is when he does the presentation to the select board with the recommended budget. We then usually follow up at our first meeting, which this year is on Tuesday, February 6th, where as part of the agenda, I would have the recommended budget. We'd go through it with all the recommendations. Then, because we've already moved our second meeting beyond February vacation, that kind of gives you an extra week to review it. And our second meeting in February, which is the 27th, would be our budget hearing. So that would be the primary purpose of that particular meeting. We may have a couple of other smaller items, but more business-related. We really try to spend that night talking and reviewing page by page the budget. If for some reason we didn't get to it that night or the meeting was canceled, we'll have a placeholder on the next meeting, which is Tuesday, March 12th. And that's because we had to bump the first Tuesday to the 12th for the budget hearing. So I would propose this calendar for you.
Make a motion to approve the 2025 budget calendar as presented.
Second.
Are there any questions or further discussion? Okay, all those in favor?
Aye.
Aye.
5-0 in favor.
Thank you. Last report for me this evening is just the personnel report for the,
It's aggressive. Keep going.
he's coming on, is for the month of November. We had a few new hires, a few resignations, and one assignment change within the district, just to keep you up to speed.
I usually don't comment on the resignations or anything, but I did want to say, can you go back to Emily Dilworth and say we don't accept her resignation?
She resigned from that position. She's working in a different position for us.
All right, fine. All right. As long as she's still around. Okay.
Yeah, I have to figure out which school she's at.
Okay. Emily, oh, good. That means I'll get to see her again. I've seen her, for, I think, almost for 8 years now, I think, something like
Yes.
that. So,
But you know what, actually, she should probably be listed as a assignment change,
okay.
because she stayed with us.
I actually messaged her. I was so
Not
upset.
really
That was
gone,
like,
she's
what is-
just.
Oh, is that why?
She's not really gone. Okay, we're good. As long as Emily's still around, we're good.
Well, Joanna did just clarify for us. She did leave the position at Byam on 12/11. She's not going to start the new job until January.
Oh, no, it's
She'll be on the next list.
She'll appear as a new hire on your next report.
yes. All right, thank
I
you.
noticed there's a grade 1 teacher center. Have we filled that position? What are we doing to fill that position?
Yeah, they actually, it's a very long story, but they did interviews last week, it's my understanding. They had a number of teachers coming in this week for like model lessons, so they should be wrapping that up this week, and then hopefully the new teacher will begin after the break.
There was already a sub in for that position anyway,
Very long
right?
story.
Yeah.
And the only other thing, I know mentioned the substitutes, how we, since we have personnel, how are we doing substitute-wise? What are we,
Decent.
decent?
Decent. So, Linda was able to pull a little bit of information for me. I can do a more formal report for you, but December, just because of the choppiness of the month, probably isn't the best one to look at. Like the full month of, and we're not through the whole month yet,
Yeah.
but the full month of October, full month of November, we were running about a 72% average fill rate. So 7 out of 10 teaching positions were filled each day. Which, because then people ask, well, what happens to the other 3?
Yeah.
Typically what happens at the middle and the high school level, because it's a like a class-specific schedule. The subs themselves don't traditionally get like their prep period and things like that. So whoever's maintaining the schedule at the school will fill the other spots with, will kind of fill those people's schedules so that they're filling the available spots in the schedule, if that makes any sense.
Yeah.
And then beyond that, from time to time again, and we are going to pull some data for you, because Maria had asked about this earlier. I don't think it's actually happening a lot, but I'll pull the data for you. A para may be asked to step up and be the teacher for the day, particularly if they're the teacher in the class and have familiarity with the kids. All classes are filled. You know, it's not that we don't have unfilled
If
classes.
Power does it, they get extra.
They get a stipend
Get a stipend for doing that.
the day beyond their regular pay
Yeah,
for filming.
okay. Right, so that-
They do, but that has an impact on everybody else who, that work is then not done because there's no substitute for the para. So, is there anything that can be done? Are we doing everything that we possibly can in terms of reaching out for a greater pool of substitutes? Is our rate competitive? Is there anything else we can do?
Our rate is very competitive. We look at this every year when we put the budget together, just to see how we're doing with the Merrimack Valley is our pool that we pull from. So we'll pull the comps on that to see where we fall. But we were actually, I think, like second from the highest last year. Lowell is still beating us. They have maintained their COVID rates, I call them. And no one in our area can compete with that. So we're basically the next highest district as far as that's concerned. We're almost back to pre-pandemic, like total number of subs that we have available working. People are just more selective. I'm finding people are just more selective on working. People don't necessarily want to work as much. So someone who might have worked 4 to 5 days previously is happy and satisfied working, 2 days a week. So that's an issue for us. We're constantly hiring. Bridget, who is our sub-coordinator, has people, active postings all the time. They go to job fairs to try to recruit people. We're bringing people in. Oftentimes what'll happen is the subs that come in that are looking for more permanent work, the good ones really rise to the top, and they end up oftentimes taking para jobs. So if we have open para jobs in the district, they're kind of a candidate that's going into that, because then that's full-time employment, which helps us on the filling the para front, but then that depletes the sub pool. It's this never-ending cycle. This is not unique to Chelmsford. This is happening, everywhere. But in one respect, I'm happy that we're almost at the pre-pandemic levels. It's just, incentivizing people to
I agree,
work.
like 72%, I was happy, that's a good number. The reason I even brought this up is like a month ago, I was reading about certain communities where they're not getting even half that amount, and so high school kids were going 4 to 5 classes in a study, and so if we're covering 72%, again, you want 100%, but, that was actually a number I was surprised.
That happens to us too sometimes, where, it's a group that, there's several classes for one sub. That happens to us sometimes. But I agree with you, and I think it's gonna get harder and harder, and of course, we're hearing reports that nationwide, some school districts are at 4 days in order to attract staff. So I've gone down to that, and not in the Northeast, but more rural areas are starting to get impacted. So we have to be really, really careful. And I just am wondering what else can we possibly do to attract more subs?
I mean,
Make it a permanent position, something like that, I don't know.
well, so I think you kind of hit on this, is I think that, everybody, coming into the substitute pool has different reasons for being there,
Right.
different needs, for, maybe the number of days they want to work or whatever it might be. And I do think that, even a high rate of pay doesn't necessarily guarantee that
Right.
you're going to attract,
Right.
substitutes, speaking from experience. So, I think that, I think we're doing the best we can. I think that is a pretty high number. I think it's been a struggle for as long as I can remember, even pre-COVID, and I think it's going to continue to be a struggle.
Agreed.
I just wonder if if the position is changing a bit, in the sense that most of the people who want to be a substitute or will work as a substitute maybe want more certainty in knowing that, you know, every 2 days I'm at this school and I'm available for this school. Every 2 days I'm, you know, whatever. So maybe we need to rethink how, what are the things those folks are looking for and seeing if we can offer it.
I think we already
have-
do that.
Well, we do
yeah.
have that
yeah.
in some fashion. We call them kind of building-based subs.
Yeah.
So if you have a particular sub who maybe their child goes to the school, or they're just very comfortable with a particular level, and they say, you know what, I just want to commit to Monday, Wednesday, Friday, that's what works in my schedule, and I want to work at center. We'll schedule them Monday, Wednesday, Friday, and they just know, they wake up and they report to center, and they may not know who they're going to be in for that day, but they have a job that day.
And is this something that we do as a regular basis and say to people who come and work for us, as subs, look, this is available to you?
Bridget screens them when they come in to see if, now, there are some people, though, that don't want that, because they were day-to-day subs
Sure.
specifically because they want to be able to pick and choose what days they
Right.
work.
Sure.
But when she screens them on intake, no, if there's someone who's willing to commit to us for like a particular school, a particular level, we'll lock them right in. So that does happen.
Wonderful.
But are they then considered a permanent hire, or is it still really a separate?
No, they're still a sub.
But they're just scheduled that way?
They're scheduled, so that they're kind of guaranteed a position on those particular days.
So they're a day-to-day sub, a long-term sub, if I'm not mistaken, would be taking the position of one particular teacher over a long period of time.
And they need to be fully licensed.
Right, okay, so,
Yeah. You're right, there's different people sub for different
right.
reasons. Some people like that ability to just say yes or no. If I feel like subbing today, I will, and I might sub again for weeks.
Yeah.
Yeah, the other thing, we have a very good sub pool. Like, the people we have are very good people. We also have some people who will say, like, even like our retired educators, but they only like to come back and sub for specific people. So like, there may have been, were you one of them? All right, there may have been people who are retired, who like, you know, let's say I was an art teacher, and I'm very happy going to sub for art teachers. Well, I know if there's like an art teacher out, they already kind of line up their subs. They know who's going to come in for them. But they don't want to go and teach somewhere else. So it's a
I'll
very,
admit, I mostly subbed when someone I knew would call me and say, I need to be out on such and such a date. Will you sub? And I'd be like, sure.
and again, it probably worked. Because it was, you know, hit or miss. If you wanted to do it, great, but you didn't have to report if you didn't want to. So we try to make, it's like a menu. You can kind of pick what's going to work for you. But it's a challenge, but I think we're actually doing a pretty good job. But we can always look to improve. Okay, thank you. And I can follow up with December after we get the full month data. Okay. And that's all I have.
All right, great. All right, thank you. Do we have any liaison? Reports?
The committee that I had a liaison to was the Wellness Committee. And many of us could not make that meeting, so it was mostly done by, it's the Wellness Fair again. We are just continuously meeting regarding that. So if you know of anyone who wants to be part of the Wellness Fair, March 6th. Okay, just reach out.
Thank you. Anybody else?
I attended Harrington's PTO meeting on December 6th. Anyone who was watching and doesn't know, if you have children at Harrington, this week is the Celebrate Harrington Week, and each day is something fun and different. Tomorrow is PJ and Light Day. You can read with a glow stick. There's a Thursday, they're supposed to dress in silly clothes, be unique. Friday is wear your Lion's Pride clothing. They're also doing something with the seniors. In May, they have a senior week right there at Harrington. They have a breakfast for seniors. They have seniors come in and kind of do like little internships, special activities with the kids, like seniors who had gone to that school. So they're already planning on that. They have a little committee doing that. And on January 19th, they're going to tape Mr. A to the wall.
What day is that?
January 19th.
Yeah.
I'm going to tape Mr. A to the wall.
You can help.
Oh, that's next
Want
month.
to go see that?
I think I missed it. It was today.
No, yeah, it's not January.
January.
Oh, January.
I'm sorry,
I said
January,
the same
January.
thing,
Did I
yeah.
say? I said it, no. It was originally going to be this past week. It's going to be January 19th. Sorry, January 19th.
I'll put it on the calendar.
Yeah.
All right, is there anybody else that has a report?
Yeah, I just Alumni Association was a week and a half ago, and mainly the meeting was about scholarships. So They're revamping their scholarship website. I guess it was less than user-friendly. So most of the meeting was just beta testing and just seeing what was the best format. So as far as I know, it's up and running now. You can get to it on either the Alumni Association website, or there's QR codes all around the high school. So all students have to do is take their phone, zap it, and it brings up the Google, it's all Google Forms now, so hopefully a little bit more user-friendly, so they'll get, some good signups for the scholarships.
Great. Anybody else? All right. Are there any action or new items, items for upcoming agendas?
Just to put it on the radar, I know Jay's gonna, so in going through the capital, South Row roof was one of the ones that came up. Was it South Row? No, yeah, South Row.
Yeah.
And we decided not to put it on because we were gonna apply through
Oh, right.
MSBA for their
Accelerated.
accelerated repair program. So that's gonna be something that has to get done
Yeah.
right after the beginning of the first of the year, so.
Yeah, we had, I forgot about that. There were two big projects. So McCarthy was like 1.2 million.
Yeah.
And I want to say South Row was even a little bit higher. Was it like 1.
I think it was 1.2 also.
Was it
It was
1.2?
similar.
Yeah.
Okay. So the way the MSBA works, they have the core program, which is what we just got accepted into for Parker. They also have what they call accelerated repair. So these are quicker projects that are funded quicker as well, but they're limited in scope to roofs, boilers, doors, and windows. So traditionally, every year they opened up a pool of funding for that. It's an accelerated timeline as well as program. So right after the first of the year, the window opens, you have to apply by March 1st for that particular program. They come out and do their, what they call due diligence, to take a look at things between March and June. They take a look at all the different projects that came forward, they rank them based on how much money they have available, and then no later than their October board meeting, they vote to award projects to accelerated repair. There's a criteria, though, because like on a roof project, you have to have a roof at least 25 years old to even get into the mix. The McCarthy roof was only 21 years old, so that would never make the cut. The South Row roof is over 25 years, so it stands a chance. So it was just another big roof project. We said, because the list was so long this year, let's try to apply for accelerated repair. If we were able to get it, that's a 50% reimbursement. Again, it's like a no-brainer not to take. We wouldn't be able to do it this summer anyway, just the way that the town meeting works. So if we find out in October and we fund it in October, we then could get someone on board, get the drawing set, and do it during the summer of '25. And they make the money available that quickly. So I do have to jump on that in January as well. Yeah.
Anything else? So just one, I do think after the first, I'm looking for feedback from people, not necessarily now, but if you want to contact me or if we want to put on as an agenda, I'd like to come up with a plan from now till April around how it is that we're going to kind of roll this out, to various groups in town. Because I think if we don't come up with a plan, then I just want to make sure we cover all our bases, right? I want to make sure that we've used every opportunity we can. And I guess my question is, do we want to do it as part of, do we want to establish a subcommittee? Do we want to do it as a separate working group? Do we want to do it as part of our meetings here? Just something to think about.
Just right up, the first thing I thought was working group with varied stakeholders, not just school committee. It can't be like an insulated thing because it affects the whole town. I wouldn't want to do, maybe a subcommittee, but I don't know what the right terminology is, but I think
Okay,
it should
so
be.
just, if you guys could think about that
Yeah.
for me, and, if you think, for example, we just want to make it a regular part of this agenda and discuss strategies for being able to do that, we can do that.
Yeah.
Or if you want to do it as I said, a working group, meeting before the meeting, or as a subgroup, so whatever people think. All right?
As part of that, Donna, what's the status of the strategic planning committee for the town? Because I would think that this whole school committee, this whole school building thing
Right.
is very important as part of that strategic plan.
So Susan is our liaison to
Okay.
that. Paul is aware of that. I don't know if I think he said after the first of the year, right?
Right,
that
I
they were
think
gonna
last
start.
night at the select board meeting, they were supposed to just vote on solidifying that committee. And I haven't heard anything about when the work will start.
Because that would be a good committee to present at, so that they're aware of what's going on.
Yeah, I think there's, lots of opportunities that I think we should capitalize on in order to kind of get the word out.
Yep. It's going to be a lot of work.
Yep,
And so
yep. And
just
so,
committed.
yeah, and that's why I really want to kind of get on, how is it we want to go about doing this? So.
I agree.
But I mean, even with the working group, I think the working group needs to report constantly back to the whole group.
Yeah, and
because we all
absolutely.
need to
And it may be that
very
everybody
much be
wants to be in
involved.
the working group, so then, maybe we make it part of our regular meeting, but, give it some thought. I'll talk to Dr. Lang and see what the best approach is.
Maybe like before our next meeting or two, we could just
Yep.
have like one of our working sessions
That's what I mean, yeah.
and just kind of internally figure it out
Right.
and go from there.
All right, sounds good. All right, do we have any other public comments for tonight?
We don't,
Any emails that need to be read into the record?
none.
Nothing? Okay, then with that, I'll take a motion for adjournment.
I make a motion to adjourn.
I second that motion.
All those in favor?
Aye.
5-0. Thank you, everybody.